Welcome to my channel, Andra Makes, and today I'm going to be showing you how to make this top. It is the Be Bold pattern by Ellie and Mac, and I made this version. And the version I made, the length is called the top length. When you're cutting out your pattern piece, you'll see that. And then I made the ruffle, and then I made the elbow sleeve length with the hem. I didn't use the elastic. And I made the sash. Here's the top. This is very pretty. Off the shoulder. And the pattern and fabric were in the April Thread Crate subscription box, and I have unboxing videos already on my channel for those, so check that out. And if you're interested in subscribing to Thread Crate, I have a link in the description box that's specific to me and also a discount code. So if you use that link and my discount code to subscribe to Thread Crate, I will get a commission for helping Cassandra get the word out about Thread Crate. And I do plan on doing a tutorial for every pattern that's in the Thread Crate box each month, barring any unforeseen circumstances, of course. And I do want you to know that I really don't follow the pattern instructions in my tutorial. I read the instructions ahead of time, and to me, there's a faster and easier and less frustrating way to put this top together, so you may want to read the instructions that are in the pattern and then watch my video and then decide which instructions you want to follow. But the changes I made were, I don't install the sleeves set in, I install them flat, and I pre-crease the top of the ruffle and the top of the bodice and the top of the sleeves. And I also pre-hem the bottom of the sleeves, the bottom of the ruffle, and the bottom of the front and back bodice pieces. And I also finish all my edges of all my pieces, except the sash, before I do any construction. So take a look at the way I do things, and if you'd like to join in, let's get started. I'm going to do things a lot differently than the pattern suggests. I've read over the instructions, and the way I'm going to be doing it, to me personally, it's a lot easier and faster and less frustrating, and that's what I'm all about when I sew. Keep in mind, we're only using a 1/4 inch seam allowance throughout this construction process. So I recommend using whichever finishing method you prefer, either a serger or a zigzag on your sewing machine, and going ahead and finishing all the edges of all the pieces except the sash, if you're making the sash. And I have already done that on all my pieces. It didn't take too long, but go ahead and put on a podcast or some music or one of my interviews on my YouTube channel, shameless plug, and just serge or zigzag away. But keep in mind, like I said, there's only a 1/4 inch seam allowance, so whichever finishing method you use, make sure it's less than a 1/4 inch wide. I used my serger, and I only use the right needle on my serger. I don't ever use both needles. I just use one needle, and it's on the right. So I recommend practicing with the fabric that you're going to use for your top, either with your serger or your sewing machine, and get your finishing method narrower than a 1/4 inch. Mine is about an 1/8 inch. If it's wider than a 1/4 inch, then it's going to show when you go to construct your garment. And also get all of your kinks worked out as far as you don't want your stitches too tight and things like that. So go ahead and do your preferred finishing method and finish all the edges of all the pieces except the sash. And when you're at an intersection of all the corners, make sure your stitches overlap, either your serger stitches or your zigzag stitches. Okay, once you've done that, on your two bodice pieces, front bodice and back bodice, I want you to put them wrong side up, and across the top of both bodice pieces, front and back, fold it down 3/4 of an inch and give it a good press. We're just going to make a pre-crease that's going to help in a future step. So fold it down toward the wrong side of your fabric, 3/4 of an inch, and give it a press. Do that on both front and back bodice pieces. Grab your sleeve pieces, put them wrong side up. Across the top of your sleeve, you're going to fold it down toward the wrong side, 3/4 of an inch. Give it a good press. We're just making creases in our fabric. So do that to both sleeve pieces. Fold it to the wrong side, 3/4 of an inch. Give it a press. Okay, we're going to do the same thing to the top of both ruffle pieces, and the way you can tell the top from the bottom is the top is shorter and the bottom is longer. So fold the top down toward the wrong side, 3/4 of an inch. Give it a good press. Do the same thing for the remaining ruffle piece. Fold it down toward the wrong side, 3/4 of an inch. Give it a good press. Okay, once you've done that, we're going to move to the bottom of all those pieces, and we're actually going to be stitching this time. So on the bottom of both of your ruffle pieces, the bottom is the longer side, fold it up 1/2 inch. Give it a good press, and then we're actually going to stitch it close to your finished edge. We're creating a hem. We're doing all this ahead of time, which is going to be a lot easier and less of a headache, in my opinion. And get your other ruffle piece on the bottom. Across the bottom, fold it to the wrong side, 1/2 inch. Stitch it down, creating a hem. Same thing on your sleeve pieces. The bottom of the sleeve, fold it up 1/2 inch. Give it a good press and stitch across, creating a hem. Other sleeve piece, same thing. Bottom of the sleeve, fold it toward the wrong side, 1/2 inch, press and stitch close to that finished edge, creating a hem. Same thing for your front and back bodice pieces. Across the bottom, fold it up 1/2 inch, give it a good press, and stitch it down, creating a hem. And your other bodice piece, front or back, they're both the same. Fold it up 1/2 inch, give it a good press, and stitch across. Just remember, all the bottom hems on everything is 1/2 inch, and then across the top of all the pieces is 3/4 of an inch, but we're just pressing. We're not doing any sewing to the top right now. So do all that and then meet me back here. If you want to do the double fold hem like the pattern suggests, please feel free. I'm just not going to do that. I think it's easier this way and it's less bulk. And if you have your edges finished, then there's really no need, in my opinion. But if you would like to do that, go ahead. And what they want you to do is fold your bottom hem up 1/4 inch, and then fold it over another 1/4 inch, and then stitch it down, creating a hem. So I will leave it up to you which method you want to do. Okay, by this point we should have the tops of all our pieces except the sash pieces. We're not doing anything to the sash just yet. The tops of all the pieces, front and back bodice, the sleeves, and the ruffle pieces should be folded down and pressed 3/4 of an inch, no sewing. The hems of all those pieces, front and back bodice, both ruffle pieces, and both sleeves should be folded, pressed, and sewn at 1/2 inch. So that's where we are now. So grab one of your bodice pieces, they're both the same, it doesn't matter, and put it right sides up, and where you had your crease pressed, unfold that. We want everything flat, and grab the corresponding sleeve piece. Bodice right side up, sleeve piece right side down. Match the curve, pin or clip, pin or clip those together in the curve and sew at a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And then grab you want to unfold your sleeve crease also. You want everything flat, no creases, no folds. You still want it creased but not folded down, of course. And find your other sleeve piece, put it right side down. You want everything flat, nothing folded. You'll still have a crease though there, and that's going to help us later. Pin or clip the curve. And sew that at a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Remember to back stitch at the beginning and end of every seam, and then meet me back here. You should have one bodice piece with a sleeve on this side and a sleeve on this side. So spread everything out and put it right side up, and then grab your remaining bodice piece. And here's the sleeve. And the remaining bodice piece, put it right sides together along that curve. Pin or clip that curve. You'll pin or clip it all the way around. For the sake of time, I'm not going to. Scoot it down, then find the other side of your bodice piece and the other sleeve in the curve. And remember, just like we did on the other side, you want to make sure these are flat and not folded where we made the crease. So spread it out flat. Match those curves. Pin or clip that curve all the way around. And sew both those with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Now we have both sleeves sewn, both sides of both sleeves sewn to both sides of the front and back bodice pieces. So spread everything out in front of you, right side up. There's a bodice here, a sleeve here, and a sleeve down here. So bring your bodice pieces right sides together, and that will also bring your sleeves right sides together. And match up your sleeve, pin or clip, match up your underarm seam. Press your seam allowances open right there, just finger press it for the time being at the underarms. Press those open, match up those seams, pin or clip, and then go down to the hem of your front and back bodice, match those up, pin or clip, and then continue pinning or clipping the rest of the way. Sew that at a 1/4 inch seam allowance, And then we're going to do the same thing to the other side. Right sides together. Match your hems, front and back bodice. Pin or clip. Match your underarm seam. Press those seams open, just with your fingers for now. Match up those seams as best you can. Pin or clip. Find your sleeve hems, match those up. Pin or clip, and then sew that side together using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Now grab your 2 ruffle pieces and put them right sides together. And remember, make sure that the crease you made is unfolded. We want it all flat, not folded over. Match up the short sides. Pin or clip down this short side and this short side, right sides together, and sew those at a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Now we're going to find the center front and the center back of our ruffle pieces and our bodice pieces. So grab some pins and grab your ruffle piece, and you want to match the seams. So here's a side seam and here's a side seam. So match those together. Right sides together. Press your seam allowances open, it'll make it easier. And then pin those together. And then here's the seams that we just pinned together, and then just spread everything apart. Get it nice and even, and then this part that you're pinching right here is the center. So grab a pin and stick it right in there. And then do the same to the other side. Just straighten everything out. You don't want that crease in it right now, the fold. So here's the seam, the seams that we just pinned together, and then here's the other side. Get it all nice and even and straight. And then what you're pinching right here is the center. So put a pin in it. And now you can take the pin out of the middle where we matched up those seams. And spread everything apart, and then here where the remaining pins are, that's your center front and center back of your ruffle, and we're going to do the same thing to the bodice piece. So find the neckline. There we go. And what we're going to do this time is this is one piece, either the front or back, and here are the shoulder seams. So match those shoulder seams together. You can pin if you want to, and then spread everything out. And then this right here that we're pinching is the center. So put a pin in that. And then do the same to the other bodice piece. So you want to match up these shoulder seams and either pin it or just hold on to it and then pull, not pull, but Don't want to stretch it, but straighten that out. And then here's your other center. So put a pin right there. And then when you spread everything apart, there's your center back or center front. They're both the same. There's the pin. And then on the other side. So we found our centers. So lay your shirt let's turn it right side out. Watch your pins and don't poke yourself. So here's the bodice pieces up here, the hems down here on the bottom, and then find your ruffle piece. Turn it right side out, so your ruffle piece is right side out and your shirt piece is right side out. And then we're going to slip the ruffle onto the bodice. Slip it over it. So the wrong side of your ruffle will be facing the right side of your bodice. And then find the centers that you just made, the pin on the ruffle and the pin on the bodice, and match those up. And you don't want the crease that you made folded down. You want everything still straight. Match up those two pins and then pin that section together. And then we're going to do the same to the back. So find your pin on your bodice and your pin on your ruffle piece and match those. And take one of your pins out and then use the other one to pin those two pieces together. So now we have our centers matched. Now we're going to match our shoulder seam. So find the shoulder seam on your ruffle piece. Open up those seam allowances. And that will go in the center of your sleeve. Then go to the other side. And the side seam of your ruffle will go in the center of your two sleeve seams. We don't want our crease folded at this point. And then all the way around, continue pinning or clipping your ruffle piece to your bodice piece. And then meet me back here. Once you have your ruffle piece pinned or clipped to your bodice piece all the way around, just make sure that everything is flat and your crease is not folded over. You're going to baste it all the way around using about an 1/8 inch seam allowance. And when you get to any shoulder seams, make sure that they're open as you baste across those. That'll make it easier when we go to insert the elastic. So baste your ruffle onto your bodice and then meet me back here. We have our ruffle basted to our bodice, and here's where the pre-pressing the crease comes in handy. So keep this in mind anytime you're sewing anything that has an elastic casing. I always, before I do anything, go ahead and fold that down and press it. And then by the time we get to this step, you already have your crease, and it makes it so much easier and faster. Can you imagine trying to press all this down right now, 3/4 of an inch? That would be frustrating, I think. So anyway, we have our pre-pressed crease. So go ahead and fold it down now, all the way around. What we're doing is making a casing for the elastic to go through. And when you fold it, make sure your seam allowances stay open. So it makes it so much easier now that we already have that crease pre-pressed. So fold it down. You're folding it to the wrong side of your bodice, all the way around, pin or clip, and then we're going to sew it using a 1/4 inch seam allowance all the way around, but decide which you want to be the front and back. And on the back piece, you're going to leave a 2-inch opening to insert the elastic. So start here and back stitch and go all the way around, and then at a 2-inch opening, stop there and back stitch and leave an opening right here, and then meet me back here. Cut your elastic to whatever length you need according to the size you're making, and you'll find that in the pattern. And get you a safety pin or a bodkin or something, whatever you use to thread your elastic through with. And I always, on the opposite end, like to put some clips or something like that, and that keeps it from pulling all the way through when I'm threading it through, because I don't want it to do that yet. So take whatever method you're using and start threading your elastic through the casing and go all the way around, and then come out the opening on the other side. Just make sure you don't lose your your opposite end of the elastic in your opening, and then meet me back here. Once you have your elastic all the way through the casing, overlap the elastic flat, overlap it about a 1/4 inch, and then stitch it together. And then once you have your elastic stitched together, pull on it and get everything into the casing. Just keep going around like this and get it distributed as evenly as you can. And then once you've done that, find your opening and pull on it so it's flat, and then just stitch that opening closed. And your top is finished. Do you love it? I just went and tried mine on and I love it a lot. So now I'm going to make the sash. For those of you who are making the sash, get your 2 sash pieces and put them right sides together, and on one short side sew it together using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And I've already done that for the sake of time. And then once you do that, open it up and you're going to fold it right sides together, and when you get to those seam allowances of the seam you just made, press those open and then pin or clip that together. And then once you have right sides together, pin or clip it all the way down, and then you're going to sew one short side and then pivot and then come all the way down until a little bit before this seam, and stop and back stitch. We're going to leave an opening so we can turn this right side out, and then go a little bit past center and start again with a 1/4 inch seam allowance, back stitch, and then sew all the way down the long side and then back up this short side. And then you're going to, through the opening you left, turn your sash right side out, and then meet me back here. Once you have your sash sewn and turned right side out, give it a good press and check your corners, and go in, if you haven't already, go in with point turner or something and poke them out, and if you're not happy with the way they look, turn it back inside out and clip the corners a little bit. So do that on both sides and give it a good press, and then where you had your opening, just tuck that in, your seam allowance, tuck it in, and you can either hand sew your opening closed, which is what I'm going to do, or you can top stitch all the way around your sash, and when you do that, that will close your opening. And you are finished with your top and your sash. I hope you enjoyed sewing along with me. I would love, love, love to see your top. So if you make one using my tutorial, please tag me on Instagram. I would love to see it and share it. Or if you don't use Instagram, comment below and let me know you made one. I hope you enjoyed my little hack about pre-creasing anytime there's going to be a casing. I have just found that to be a lot easier and faster and less frustrating. So anytime you're making a pattern that, well, most times you're making a pattern that has an elastic casing, I do recommend going ahead and pre-creasing that. That way when you get to the step, when it's time to fold it down, it's a lot easier because you already have a crease that's pressed. If you found this video helpful and you did sew along with me and would like to buy me a cup of coffee, I have a link in the description box through Ko-fi, Ko-fi, where you can leave me a little tip, buy me a virtual cup of coffee if you'd like. If you can't, no worries, no problem at all. Your likes and comments and shares also help support my channel, so thank you so much for doing that. And I hope you enjoyed this little tutorial. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to watch my video. If you'd like to see future videos, please subscribe to my channel. I would really appreciate it. See you next time. Bye!